Hello again, and welcome back to year 5 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is week 4. We're continuing our way on this day 1 through the book of Genesis. Last time we saw Joseph arrive in Egypt, where he became the slave of a wealthy Egyptian named Potiphar. God was with Joseph, and he gained the favor of his master, who entrusted all his household and property to Joseph's stewardship. However, Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph, and when he refused her, she slandered him to her husband, who threw Joseph into prison. Even there, God remained with him, and he gained the favor of the master of the prison, who set him over everything within the prison. We will continue the story from there. Sometime after this, the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his 2 officers, the chief butler and the chief baker, and he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he waited on them, and they continued for some time in custody. And one night they both dreamed, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison. Each dreamed his own dream, and each dream with its own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning and saw them, they were troubled. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in custody in his master's house, "Why are your faces downcast today?" They said to him, "We have had dreams, and there is no one to interpret them." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell them to me, I pray you." So the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, "In my dream there was a vine before me, and on the vine there were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms shot forth, and the clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Then Joseph said to him, "This is its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office, and you shall place Pharaoh's cup in his hand as formerly when you were his butler. But remember me when it is well with you, and do me the kindness, I pray you, to make mention of me to Pharaoh, and so get me out of this house. For I was indeed stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, "I also had a dream. There were 3 cake baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there were all sorts of baked food for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating it out of the basket on my head." And Joseph answered, "This is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat the flesh from you." On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants, and lifted up the head of the chief butler and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief butler to his butlership, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile, and behold, there came up out of the Nile 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they fed in the reed grass. And behold, 7 other cows, gaunt and thin, came up out of the Nile after them, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. And the gaunt and thin cows ate up the 7 sleek and fat cows. And Pharaoh awoke. And he fell asleep and dreamed a 2nd time, and behold, 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. And behold, after them sprouted 7 ears thick, 7 ears thin, and blighted by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. So in the morning his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none who could interpret it to Pharaoh. Okay, so, dreams. People ask priests about dreams and visions and ideas fairly often. And most of the time these dreams are not like this. These are very vivid and very confusing dreams. Most of the time people are dreaming perhaps about loved ones who've died, or things that they want, and they're wondering if that's a sign from God. And often we can look at these and say, these are really just the fruit of the direction that giving your mind and your desires during the daytime. This is a playing out of your passions. This is not a sign from God. Again, if every young man who had a dream about a celebrity, thought that meant he was going to marry the celebrity, just no. Just no. But these are weird dreams, and they get at something that we often forget, that we often neglect or deny even, that in our dreams we are open. The mind, the eye of the mind, the eye of the heart is open in our dreams, and what it sees may be what it has brought before itself in the course of the day, but it may be something that is placed before it by God or by some other spirit. So it might be a temptation. So dreams are dangerous. Dreams are troubling. Dreams are a thing to take seriously. Whether they show us that we need to stop watching those television shows or reading those books or looking at those things on the internet, or whether they show us that maybe we should think less about food, or whether they are a really weird and troubling dream. Dreams should be taken seriously. These dreams, these three people, the butler and the baker and Pharaoh himself, they at least are taken seriously. They're strange, they're peculiar, they don't connect obviously with anything that they have been doing, and therefore Joseph is able to interpret that yes, God is revealing something to these people in their dreams. It's notable as well, on the one hand, we see Joseph is righteous, Joseph is faithful to God, and Joseph is granted this discernment, which is not a guarantee. Not everyone has this discernment. But on the same token, Joseph is at a further remove. He's further from God than his father or grandfather or great-grandfather, because God spoke to them face to face. God revealed himself to Abraham and spoke to him and ate with him at the Oak of Mamre. He came to Isaac and revealed himself to him. He came to Jacob at Bethel and revealed himself to him. So, and wrestled with Jacob before he came back into the promised land. So Joseph is having dreams, and that's good, and he's righteous and faithful. But there's a distance here. He's interpreting dreams, not encountering God himself. Nonetheless, we see God is caring for him and protecting him, and is setting things up, even from these dreams that the baker and the butler had. A word about the baker and the butler. We have to remember that the people who feed a king are the ones who have the easiest possibility of poisoning the king. So we don't need to know the full backstory to have a sense of why these two might have found their way into prison. Probably someone who was eating some food that was served died, and Pharaoh decided that someone was trying to poison him, threw them both in prison, did an investigation. Whether it was true or not, he clearly decided that the baker was guilty and executed him, but he restored the butler, the man in charge of the wine, to his place. So that seems to be the background here. So anyway, that's it for day 1. God bless you all. We'll see you shortly for day 2.